Hey there, EB here on the Anything But Bland weekly update. It's Thursday, it's rainy out, kind of gloomy. We have a lot going on in the world. Obviously, we had the State of the Union speech this week. It was a big night, and we have a lot going on in the world. We have things happening in Cuba where, some Americans were shot off the coast of Cuba. We have the biggest military buildup in the Middle East since the Gulf War, and what to do about Iran. The Supreme Court decision on tariffs. So let's just dive in. The State of the Union was Tuesday night. Um, I will compliment President Trump in this respect. He knows how to give a theatrical speech. It's not an inspiring speech. It's not a timeless speech that you would hear from somebody like a Reagan. It's not filled with things that are motivating and are historical, and that there'll be sound bites that'll play for years and years and years. Like Kennedy asked, not what you could do for your country, but what your country can do for you. you know, uh, this day will live in infamy, all these great platitudes that presidents have said in the past. But Trump knows how to do theater, and he knows how to embarrass the opposition. And he accomplished that Tuesday night. The theatrics of having the hockey team there was perfect, and congratulating them on their gold medal. Bringing in Venezuelan prisoners was great. Bringing in military people, it just, the pageantry of it is perfect, and he does a very good job of that. And he's entertaining to listen to because he's extremely animated. Very little on substance. There wasn't anything new on policies on what's going to happen to make things more affordable, or drive costs down. That is the big issue. Trump went into the State of the Union speech with his lowest approval rating in either term that he's had. It's under 36% approval rating, and his approval on immigration, his approval on the economy, his approval on foreign policy, all these issues are completely underwater. He's lost 20%, 20 points, than when he was inaugurated last January. It's an extraordinary free fall that he's in, and I don't know how he's going to stop it, because he does not have empathy. He cannot communicate like Bill Clinton did. I feel your pain, when Bill Clinton said that. And it was effective because you felt like he did. And you felt like when Biden or Obama spoke about the poor, or people who are having difficulty with affording health care and child care, you feel their empathy. Trump does not show that. He can't do it. And he refuses to believe that people feel like that they're suffering out there. He thinks his economy is amazing, and in parts it is amazing, but that it doesn't trickle down to true Main Street. What is the policies that have taken place over the last year have really benefited the billionaires and the wealthy class and the industrialists. And so we have to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. He's so full of lies and hyperbole and misrepresentations that you have to piece it down. So one of the main things that he talked about, and I give him credit, he didn't hammer the Supreme Court. There were only four justices there. The others didn't want to show up, like he did after they made the decision to say that his tariffs under the Emergency Act were unconstitutional. The Constitution clearly delineates that Congress has to approve tariffs, that's within their auspices. And it was really disgraceful when he said in his speech, I'm going to bypass Congress. Congress, you don't need to worry about passing tariffs. I'm going to do it on my own. And Mike Johnson stood up and clapped. What is that guy standing up and clapping for? That he wants Congress to lose the authority that was given to them by the founding fathers for tariffs, almost abdicating the responsibility of Congress. And just so we know, Trump made this statement that, there's going to come a time where tariffs will replace income tax, that we'll be bringing in more money through tariffs than we will through income tax, so that there won't be any more income tax. So I watched Steve Ratner, who is the money man for Mayor Michael Bloomberg. He's handled his money as his exclusive client for the past 30 years. Obviously, Bloomberg's a billionaire. And what he said is that tariffs are only 4% of our country's income right now, 4%. And income tax is 51% of the money that's taken in by the federal government. So to be able to get to 52%, think of how much is going to be passed through to the consumers. A loaf of bread, instead of costing $4, would have to cost, according to him, $19 to bridge that 51% gap. It was a 6-3 vote by the Supreme Court that the tariffs were illegal. Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett bucked with Alito and Thomas and Kavanaugh on that. Trump called them some traitors, heinous names, said that they're enemies of the country, said that they're in the pockets of foreign governments. I mean, how does he make that statement? And how does congressional Republicans tolerate those kind of statements? They're not even based in fact. They're just fanciful that the Supreme Court justices are getting paid and in the pockets of foreign governments. Gorsuch's concurring opinion to John Roberts' opinion was amazing. He said, look, Congress, you have the authority. Stand up. Start negotiating. Take over. If the country wants tariffs, then you have to have the deliberative legislative process. So this is the highest, win to date by somebody who has filed 35 lawsuits against Trump since January 25. The Democratic Attorney General for Arizona was the lead plaintiff in this. She has filed 35 cases. They're typically filed by a coalition of Democratic attorneys general from across the nation. And this case was filed in April, and the Supreme Court finally ruled. They went on a break before they ruled first. This is his major economic policy. This is the sledgehammer in his arsenal, that he uses it either to normalize or equalize trade on a specific industry, or it's punitive and retaliatory after they do something that he doesn't like. If they start negotiating with China, or they make statements that impugn him personally, his cudgel is, I'm going to turn around and tariff you. He went on a blistering attack on the Supreme Court. He called them unpatriotic, disloyal, against the Constitution, swayed by foreign interests. And he said, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do first a 10% across the board tariff. Then he's going to, the next day he said, I'm raising it to 15%. But under these other provisions, these are temporary tariffs until Congress can rule. Again, Congress has to rule. They're only good for 150 days. So Trump said that they're a lapdog for the radical left, these Supreme Court justices who voted against him. And he said they're an embarrassment to their families. Where are the Republicans standing up for this? Where do they say enough is enough? You're not going to talk about Supreme Court justices, judges, or people, just people like you do. Anybody that disagrees with him become scumbags, become losers, become entangled in foreign governments, shameful, unpatriotic, treasonous. I mean, the trope has got to stop. It's so old. It's so tired. It's so overused. He wanted to be able to use tariffs to punish countries. He's not going to be able to do it. And the big thing is going to be, what do they do with the money that's been collected from these importers and these manufacturers, and also from some of the customers who have overpaid these tariffs that are illegal? Going forward, he can't do it, but he may be able to do it under these other provisions, temporary provisions. But the one that he used is illegal under the Emergency Act. And so these people are entitled to their money. And state governors are sending bills to the federal government to say, pay us back. Scott Bessent said we will be able to pay back before the Supreme Court ruled that the Treasury would be able to pay it back. But then afterwards, he said, no, they never mentioned anything about it. So people are going to just have to sue, and we'll go through the court process over the next couple of years. I mean, Scott Bessent is absolutely a sycophant for Donald Trump. He is the worst um, uh, independent Treasury Secretary we've ever had. Plus, he's head of the IRS. And, one of the big things that people aren't talking about is Donald Trump is suing the IRS for $10 billion for claiming that they wrongfully released his tax returns in 2020. And he's on the other side of the coin, where he's the defendant, he's the head of the IRS in the executive branch. And so he's going to make the decision whether to pay $10 billion along with Scott Bessent. It just the absolute piracy and robbing of America that is happening in front of our eyes um, is truly amazing. Um, you know, he it's hard to say. He takes everything personally. He makes it personal. He says it's an affront with him. Even if it's under sound legal reasoning, he thinks it's wrong. If you rule against him, for instance, this week, Eileen Cannon, who is the worst district court federal judge we have in the country. It's not by me just saying that. She has reversed more in the 11th Circuit than any district court judge that's in the 11th Circuit. And she ruled this week that the second report that was prepared by the special counsel in connection with the confidential documents case that he had at Mar-a-Lago, she ruled that it's sealed and it can't be released by the special counsel. That's never been done before. It's going to be reversed by the 11th Circuit. There's no question about it. They have stood on her head many times and said that she's way out of her league on some things, that she shouldn't do this. Eileen Cannon, get ready. If there is a Supreme Court seat that's opening up, Eileen Cannon's going to be put on that Supreme Court seat. Number two would be Pam Bondi, which would be amazing. Trump has threatened also to pack the court if they continue to rule against him. I totally agree, Melissa Mitchell. Nothing should be sealed, not in the Epstein case. And we're going to talk about, what the Justice Department did regarding 53 documents about Donald Trump and the allegations of him having sex with an underage girl in the Epstein matter, not in the confidential documents case. Nothing should be sealed. The best disinfectant is sunlight. The Congress is never going to go along with him trying to pack the court. It's not the Supreme Court's job to be the cheerleaders or get him out of the dangle if he chooses a wrong statutory provision to do an economic policy. That's the job of the people that work for him to say, hey, you can't use the Emergency Act. You actually have to use the designated tariff acts. The United States trade deficit has been reduced 78% because of the tariffs being charged to other countries. That's what he said. It's been reduced 78%. Guess what? It's only been reduced by 0.2%. So, you have to work through the lies that Trump says. For instance, when he says, there's $18 trillion of new manufacturing commitments. Well, it's only 8 trillion, which is still a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but it's not 18 trillion. And it's over a period of 45 years. It really is something that we have to talk about. Rumors about the president making a covert call began on last Friday when a mysterious John Barron called into some of the C-SPAN networks to talk about the Supreme Court decision. John Barron, John Trump Barron, his son. We also know that in the 90s, Trump impersonated a guy named Miller and would call into the New York Post. Here he called in the C-SPAN and talked about it was a terrible decision. He took swipes at his opponents during the phone call, and he made these grandiose statements. President Trump lashed out again by saying that the Supreme Court, by their decision, they're in the pocket of China. It's just not true. But he also gave them a warning shot and said, if you don't rule in favor of me in birthright citizenship case that is also on this docket, I will pack the court. I will take actions against you. So that's going to be a really big thing. This week, Hoda Kobe said that she would stay on indefinitely until Savannah Guthrie is ready to come back. I can't imagine that Savannah's going to come back anytime soon with her mother, Nancy, now being a month missing. The FBI went to the house yesterday to research, which tells us that, unfortunately, there's not a lot of leads going on. And the Guthrie family is up there ransomed to a $1 million reward, which is very significant. The Secret Service um, rightfully killed somebody that was trying to get in Mar-a-Lago with a shotgun, a 21-year-old kid. He was killed by the Palm Beach, by the Secret Service agent in the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office. Um, Donald Trump, while I dislike him, should never be the victim of any type of assassination attempt or assassination. It will be horrible for our country. It will lionize him forever. We we just shouldn't do this. And he did express this week that he can see that his life is at risk all the time. There was the Democratic and Republican governors annual meeting with the president of the United States over the weekend, and he disinvited the black governor, Wes Moore, who is a Army veteran, from coming, as well as the governor of Colorado. I think his name is Poland. He's a gay governor. Those two were disinvited, and then once they were disinvited, the Democrats didn't come, and it just turned out to be a Republican love fest. Trump reposted a, uh, a, a a tweet that he got where calling Michelle Obama a racist. This is 2 weeks after his account reposted the video of the first lady being portrayed as a monkey and the former president, her husband Barack Obama, being portrayed as an ape. The guy's a stone cold racist. Okay, don't tell me he's not. He's an anti-Semite and he's a racist. He kowtows to the worst in whites all the time. I totally disagree with Omar, as well as Al Green and the other member of the squad that were screaming out at the State of the Union. That is just irresponsible behavior, reprehensible behavior. It shouldn't be done. They should have been escorted out. Al Green did hold up a poster that said that the Obamas are not apes. That's true, but don't scream out when the president of the United States is speaking. And it's petulant of the Democrats not coming to a State of the Union speech. Pretty soon, we're just going to have one party at the State of the Union speech, the party of the president who's in office. So it's a disgrace. One of the things that Republicans talk about, like Mitt Romney, is, all these Republican principles that we used to stand for, which is leave things up to the states, don't get involved in the private sector, let the private sector do it. We're not going to get entangled in foreign wars. Trump's turned them on his head. And since returning to the White House, he has gotten the government involved in private sector in ways that Obama and past presidents never even considered. The Trump administration has taken ownership stakes in corporations, intervened in business deals, negotiated a cut of the revenue of American companies from their overseas sales. He's deployed tariffs and other policy levers to help industries he favors, like artificial intelligence and Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but punishes those industries that he doesn't like wind power and solar. And he's wielded these powers of the federal bureaucracy to pressure broadcasting companies and saying that he's going to be involved in the decision-making process of whether, CBS is sold and who's it sold to, Netflix or Paramount. And now we're blurring the lines between government and private industry, which Republicans never have talked about. He's given Iran 10 days to come up with a an agreement on that they will not develop nuclear power for weaponry. Um, Supposedly last night, one of the Iranian officials said that will be something we agreed to. They're in Geneva now. There's no diplomacy that takes place. It's only Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. He's not using the Secretary of State's office or any of the foreign attaches or ambassadors. It's a unique way of doing diplomacy. Um, uh, General Raising Cane, our guy Kane, who Trump calls Raising Cane, he does not want the United States to attack Iran. It will be a real problem because they have a lot of surrogates around the world. It could be an endless war. It could be what George Bush got us into with Iraq. It could be with Biden and Afghanistan. And so he is encouraging Donald Trump to show restraint and not bomb them. One again, that's the top general said that the president has repeatedly threatened military action against Ayatollah Khomeini's regime over concerns about their nuclear enrichment. And so I do agree that we have to prevent them from doing that, but there are other ways of doing that. Donald Trump said in his speech that 32,000 Iranians were killed. I don't know where that number came from. One is too many. So we have to support these people who are willing to overthrow their government. Now, here's the big news. The White House, who was the DOJ, who was under a congressional statute to produce everything in the Epstein case by December 31st, and produce it notwithstanding who the concerns, whether it's publicly embarrassing for that person, humiliating. The DOJ illegally withheld FBI interviews of an individual who accused Donald Trump of raping her when she was 12 or 13 years old. There were 50 pages of documents. Not that they redacted them, they just didn't even produce them. Did he commit these crimes? Who ordered the code red to pull these files from the database? There was no reason to remove them. There's no record under the law that said you can be withheld for embarrassing or reputational damage. Jim Jordan, who was head of the Oversight Committee, was confronted in the hallways of Congress and told about the Department of Justice removing these records. And he said, I have no problem with them removing the records. Marjorie Taylor Greene said that she is absolutely concerned about the solvency of the Social Security trust fund that's there for all of us. We have been talking about this since early 2000s, and nothing has been done about it. President Trump suggested last Monday that the United States might consider Americans who aren't willing to work, deport them out of the country. I mean, he made this statement at a White House event, explaining that foreign leaders have saved money by removing their people that they didn't want. What kind of ideas are being floated? Again, this is what I said. He doesn't stand for anything. All he stands for is his own wealth increasing and his family's, and how much adulation and he can get, and how many buildings he can name after himself, and how many times the Trump name can be spoken. And so when aides who have specific goals in mind want something to be floated out there, they just tell him, and he says, sure, I'll say it. I'll say anything. It's like Mikey when we were kids, life cereal. Nobody's going to eat it. We'll give it to Mikey. Mikey likes it. He'll eat anything. Well, the same thing with Donald Trump. He doesn't stand for anything. He's never going to say, no, I'm not going to say that. I don't believe in that. Can you imagine deporting American citizens who are true American citizens, not birthright citizens, but just true people who've been here for generations because they won't work? We're going to deport them out of the United States. He continues to showcase his influences because the FBI building put like 100-foot photo flag of him outside the building. The FBI is supposed to be an independent law enforcement agency. I mean, are we just going to rename the world after Donald Trump? It's really got to stop. He wants to put his name on the Department of Labor, Department of Agriculture, and the U.S. Institute for Peace. He wants these banners to be put up. The The former ambassador to the United States from the UK was arrested this week in connection with the Epstein case. This is another arrest. Now, this didn't have to do with him having sex with underage girls, but it did have him involved in releasing confidential secrets, confidential trade information to Epstein. Lauren Boebert called on Republican Tony Gonzalez, who is in the House of Representatives, to resign. A number of bipartisan Democrats and Republicans have said this guy should resign. He had an extramarital affair with a staffer of his, and then he broke it off, and the staffer lit herself on fire, committed self-immolation, which is so sad. And yes, he should resign. It's disgraceful. Trump's approval among independents is down 27% in 1 year, 27 points down to 26%. His approval on Hispanics has gone from 48% down to 32%. His approval rating on young people has gone down from 34% down to 17%. And his approval among women has gone from 49% to 34%. Four senior federal tax officials warned that President Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS will break this country if he does give the money. And I talked about that earlier. Trump has signed executive orders to increase Roundup production by Monsanto. There's tons of class actions of people who spray Roundup, if they work for the counties or landscapers getting cancer. He's given an executive order saying, let's increase the production. He said that the EPA will no longer regulate clean air, and he has left certain dyes to be remaining in processed foods. Bannon is uncharacteristically quiet, Steve Bannon, about the Epstein files that were released, showing that he's all over them and a close confidant of Epstein, in that he wanted to impeach Trump. Trump to get impeached. He wanted, if he didn't get impeached, to invoke the 25th Amendment by those in Congress to get him out of office. And he wanted to get rid of Pope Francis. And he also worked with Epstein in 2017 and 18 to try to rehab Epstein's image as not being a pedophile and a sex trafficker. FBI director asks all the personnel that were tied to the Trump's classified document probe by Jack Smith, the special counsel. Just let's get rid of him. We saw what Kash Patel's been doing. There is now whistleblower suits on how much he is using the private plane, the FBI plane, for his own private use. He flew to the Olympics to watch the gold medal hockey game. He went in the locker room and drank alcohol with them and was partying with them. This is a government official. This is crazy, folks, to use planes to fly halfway across the world. Prince Andrew has now been arrested, which is shocking for the Epstein stuff. The funniest thing I heard was a guy named Lex Wexner, who is like 85 years old and was the money guy behind Epstein. He was testifying in Congress, and it was a hot mic, and his lawyer leaned over and said, "I will effing kill you if you answer another question with greater than 5 words," because evidently he just kept speaking and giving away so much stuff in his answers. The video with RFK and Kid Rock exercising in a sauna was gross with their shirts off. I mean, everything that Robert Kennedy does is gross, folks, from eating, roadkill and talking about, his drug usage and mushrooms and yada, yada, yada. Was Tucker Carlson detained in Israel? He said some horrible things about Israel. First, he said he was detained. Then he said he wasn't. Israel said, no way. Where are those tax refund checks coming? that Scott Bessent and Trump said would happen. The $2,000 that we said we were going to send to every household because of the tariff money we got. She told Pam Bondi told the rank and file and members of the Attorney General's office that it is their duty to enforce the policies and the whims and the philosophies of Donald Trump. Um, FBI Director Kailash Patel was slammed as useless after partying with his girlfriend at the Olympics. This is going while we're about to go to war with Russia, while Americans are getting bombed in boats off of the border of Cuba, while Nancy Guthrie is still missing. The guy just doesn't care. He attended a wedding in New York City at St. Patrick's Cathedral with his country music singer girlfriend and all of the White House staff. The UK said that they're not going to let the United States use its airports to launch against Iran, and Trump said he's going to retaliate by putting tariffs on. It was interesting. Trump confirms that there are aliens after Obama kind of gave a tongue-in-cheek answer that said that there are aliens. Trump said that Obama should be prosecuted for releasing classified information about aliens. Come on, man. Trump cabinet member Chavez DeRamers, she's the Department of Labor cabinet secretary who has had a lot of disarray in her office with alcohol drinking, as well as that she had an affair with a subordinate. Her husband is now banned from the building that she works in. Trump said that Netflix, this is his words, should fire racist, Trump deranged Susan Rice, who was the former ambassador to the UN and a national security advisor, immediately, or pay the consequences. She's got no talent or skills. She's a political hack. Her power is gone and will never be back. How much is she being paid and for what? Thank you for your attention in this matter, President Donald J. Trump. He is going to pay the consequences, meaning if Netflix doesn't fire her, I'm not going to give you approval to buy CBS. He's warned them to remove her, and the stakes are high. It's him trying to inject himself again in private affairs. Trump FCC chair confirms he started enforcement proceedings against The View. Brendan Carr is the FCC chairman. He's saying that The View doesn't give equal a time to opposing views. This is the government again telling broadcast agencies what they're going to do. This is Big Brother. This is 1984. Can you imagine what's in the other 2.5 million documents of the Epstein case? I mean, it's not being turned over. Pam Bondi and the Assistant Attorney General, Todd Blanche, said we're not going to turn it over. How many wealthy, rich Republicans are being protected? Do we actually trust Pam Bondi to give Americans information that would be negative to Republicans, negative to her boss and the other people in the administration? This is a disgrace. The Kennedy Center ice rink was destroyed in a calculated malicious attack with toxic chemicals. Whoever did it, they should be prosecuted and put in jail. A decade before he ran for public office, they unearthed a audio recording of Donald Trump with Howard Stern on a show in 2006. The only age limit he has for girls is 12-year-olds. Now, who would say that? Even if you're joking, who actually would say that? It's a huge win. The judge barred the Trump DOJ from searching devices on Washington Post journalists that they executed a search warrant on. Vice President J.D. Vance declined to apologize for a claim that Alex Preddy, the guy that was killed in Minnesota, was an assassin. I mean, come on, man. You saw the video. He wasn't an assassin. He didn't pull out his gun. The Trump White House takeover has taken in effect. His daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, who's married to Eric Trump, said many, many family members are going to run for office over the next 5 to 6 years, including the president's son. So That means either she's going to run for senator of North Carolina or senator of Florida. Eric Trump may run for office. Donald Trump Jr. is going to run for office. Nick Reiner, Rob Reiner's son, has pled not guilty to murder charges. I think you're going to see an insanity plea come. There was a lot of now news coming out about how his medicine was not properly regulated for his bipolar disorder. Um, Folks, the Olympics was unbelievable. I loved it. I love Winter Olympics. Obviously, I ski so much, so I'm partial to the Winter Olympics. But it was the women who made these Olympics. Lindsey Vonn and her courage, Michaela Schifrin, who won the gold medal finally since 2014 to go along with her 110 World Cup wins. Elisa Yu, who won the female skating. She was unbelievable. The 41-year-old bobsledder. It just was women after women after women who did a great job in these Olympics. I was very disappointed in Eileen Gu. She is born in the United States. Her father, her mother was born in China. She chose to take the $6.5 million to compete with China, even though she goes to Stanford. She did win a couple golds and a silver, but it was Alyssa Yu who I think is the hero of the Olympics. She turned down the Chinese money because her father was one of the dissidents during the late 80s in Tiananmen Square. Eileen Gu had no opinions regarding how Chinese treats the Christian Uyghurs or Jimmy Long, who is in prison there, or what's going on with Beijing and Taiwan. Beijing and Taiwan is something we have to take into consideration because all the semiconductors, if Beijing takes over Taiwan, our computer industry is going to go under. The women's hockey team was just amazing. They went through the men's hockey team, Jack Hughes and his brother, and the Brady Tkachuk and his brother, Austin Matthews, and just unbelievable American hockey. It was a miracle. We won a gold medal in 1960. Of course, the miracle on ice of the Russians in 1980. And by the way, that was just the semifinal game. We had to actually go and beat Finland for the gold, which we did. 3 gold medals in 60 years, 66 years is pretty special. And I'm hopeful that hockey is going to start taking over. It's a very expensive sport for parents for their kids because of travel, getting to the ice, and the cost of the uniforms and all the equipment. But look, baseball is suffering. The Dodgers are buying their way to the World Series. There's so much going wrong in the NBA with load management and managing time. And NBA is just not fun anymore. Looking forward to March Madness coming up with college basketball. Bill Mazeroski, who was with the Pittsburgh Pirates, he died at 89 years old. It was the shot heard round the world. Is it the chicken curse? South Carolina offensive tackle who was going to be the guy to protect Lenore Sellers next year, transferred from NC State, got paid $1.5 million, was the number one offensive tackle in the portal. He was playing a 3-on-3 basketball game and suffered a major knee injury, and so he's going to be out all next year. The original Wu-Tang Clan member, Oliver Grant, died at 50 years old. There's many California wineries that are going out of business. I've been reading about it. And the reason is because the baby boomers who are big wine drinkers are dying off. And Gen Z, my daughter's ages, are not into wine. They're not big drinkers. And so these vineyards and wineries are really, really suffering. The thing that did shock me is basketball coaches and hockey coaches don't get gold medals. Only the players do. I think that the coaches, assistant coaches, the managers, and the trainers should get gold medals. So now let's turn on to some of the weekly update questions that we have. The cartel violence in Mexico is scary. The United States with the assistance, or Mexico from the assistance to the United States intelligence, killed a big cartel member and in retaliation, a lot of the troops of this cartel have burned buildings and trucks and cars, and Americans who are in these resort towns have to shelter in place and can't get home. Um, I talked about Trump and his approval ratings and how they've gone down. I talked about the State of the Union, the Murdaugh case. Um, we talked about that I believe there's going to be a retrial on that. I do not subscribe that Alex Murdaugh is innocent. Amy, I believe that he is absolutely 100% guilty of the murder of his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul. And I believe even if there's a retrial and even if they limit the amount of the financial crimes from the money that he stole from his clients being a motive, and they won't let that in the case, I still think that there is tremendous circumstantial evidence that will be to his guilt. I think I have gone through my analysis of the Supreme Court oral arguments that took place 2 weeks ago. Someone said, "Good morning, EP. I watched your YouTube segment on Alec Murdaugh appeal. I'm confused. Has the Supreme Court already made the decision?" The answer is no. I think by their questions, you were able to garner that it's probably going to be a 4-1 or a 5-0 vote for a new trial. If Alex Murdaugh is retried, can his testimony from the trial be used again? That is a previous statement, and it can be used. The question is, there will be a motion to exclude it based on his right to not be incriminated, because they're going to say he didn't get a fair trial before. And so everything from that trial should be excluded. That's going to be an interesting motion in limine. On one of the COJ episodes, you mentioned desecration of a deceased body as a crime. Can Horry County be liable for what they did to Scott Spivey? I think that's going to be interesting. I think Mark Tinsley is setting up the Horry County to be sued for the violation of Scott Spivey's rights. We know that Judge Bubba Griffin ruled that Weldon Boyd cannot have immunity for stand your ground from prosecution. He's going to make the decision on the co-defendant or the other person who was in the car. But I think ultimately he's going to get a judgment against Weldon Boyd for wrongful death, and then he's going to turn it on to the violation of the civil rights in the investigation of Scott Spivey. This is a class action question. Curious on your thoughts. I'm a part of a class action lawsuit where a settlement was given. The law firm that represented us has an expert that said how the disbursement should be given out. The law firm took 38% on 3 tiers of disbursement. My family is on the bottom. Curious if it's worth trying to get money out of the settlement. It's a class action against D.R. Horton. Yes, 38% fees in a class action is extremely high. It's usually the lodestar method that the courts use to calculate legal fees for counsel in a class action case, and it usually comes out between 18% and 24%. I've never heard 38%, so that's something that you should look into. Sunny Days 55 said, "Hi Eric, I'm late to this." Sunny D said, "Oh my God, please know about the sealing of President Trump's record." L'Oreal Lavagna said, "Hey, Eric, I know I'm late in commenting, but I've been listening. Love catching you live when I can or rewatching after the live has ended when I can't." That is so kind. I'm so grateful, L'Oreal, and everyone of you who takes the time just to listen to me rant and talk. Now, it's as I said, I get so much out of this. I think it's making me more attuned to everyday events and be part of the world and not being detached. I think it makes me smarter. So I really enjoy it, and I appreciate everybody listening. I don't know why, Dean Blackman, these files on Trump have been hidden, but obviously they're doing it to protect him. Melissa Mitchell says, "I don't understand how he's being allowed to do this. Is it because of the Republican Party?" Yes, they are absolutely lockstep with him, and they're afraid of bucking him. Sunny Days said, "I think that the John Barron was fake." Melissa Mitchell says, "Why can't they find the person?" I get it. I don't understand why they cannot find the person who took Nancy Guthrie. Um, Dean Blackman said, "I can tell you're a Democrat for sure." You're absolutely wrong. You're 100% wrong. I'm a registered Republican. I voted every time in my life for a Republican or an independent up until um, uh, Donald Trump running for the president of the United States. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I voted for a third party. In 2020, I did vote for Joe Biden. No, I am a middle of the road Republican. You could call me a rhino. You could call me anything you want. I'm not a Democrat. So, Dean Blackman, you really don't know what the hell you're talking about. Um, how much more disgusting can Donald Trump get? A lot. Maya Angelou says, when somebody shows you who they are, believe it. I think you're going to see in next 3 years how ugly it's going to get and how low he can get and disgusting. Um, uh, what he said about the women's hockey team, that he would, had to have them be brought to the State of the Union or he would get impeached was a horrible thing to say. And I didn't like that the men's hockey team laughed at that. Um, Sunny Day says, let's fire people for doing their job. Taxpayers will foot the bill that pays these employees when they win their suits. Mindful BGT said, thanks from Denmark. Man, thank you so much for listening, Mindful. I'm really great. So that is what we have today, everybody. I am so grateful for you listening. I'm doing a weekly Substack newsletter that you can subscribe to. Just trying to get as much out there so that we can have good discussions. So everybody, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.